We are recording, and take it away.
All right, can you hear me? Okay. So our action statement is to reduce lanes on all large roadways and fill the newly acquired space with dedicated public transit lanes or pedestrian spaces. Within each of our analysis, we looked at a bunch of items in the United States and basically noticed.
Now you can move on because
okay.
This slide did its job. We're looking at the evidence, we're looking at the action statement, and it's starting to make sense, but now go deep right away.
Okay, got it.
So the continued surrendering of public space to cars results in more commuters on the road and decreased area and pedestrian zones. And so when cities prioritize road space and area to vehicle, sidewalks and cross zones are narrowed to allow for more space for the car. And public transit's great, but it allows for more significant numbers of individuals to move through these areas. But when roads are not designed effectively, buses and trolleys with dozens of passengers are stuck in the same traffic as the vehicles with one passenger. And so to address the pedestrians' needs, it's really important to keep them in mind while designing roadways such as these. So my question is, how do we apply the most suitable ratio of sidewalks, streets, and rails to these urban areas?
Excellent.
And then for mine, I wanted to highlight the width of the road within Washington, D.C. and how the trolley starts to merge within the traffic with cars. There's a high, cluster of cars within these roads, kind of pushing all of the people to the edges of the road for traversing with the crosswalks connecting them. And then right after this, I highlight that there's no barrier between the two. The greenery vegetation is kind of gone due to the season, but there's just not a lot of it. So it kind of makes the experience for the passerby less likable.
So now do we explain this or do we slow?
Well, at this point, it's appropriate to say something not just, it doesn't just restate your proposed action step, but somehow in one sentence captures some of the complexity and challenge. Maybe refer to one or both of your questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess one sentence would be that we think that it's probably not enough to just introduce trams to roads, but to actively mental unsustainable infrastructure in order to get which would be lanes on roads, increasing sidewalks, and introducing groups.
So what I'm hearing you between the internet cutouts is that it's not just adding public transit, it's the design of the street space in an integrated manner. So it's a design, so basically hire an architect. Okay, next group. And as these guys do this, maybe you can adjust your presentation in time to present it with this new format. Maybe not. We forgive you. We're all working with the same challenges here. So do your best, and we'll see what we'll take what we can get, and then we'll just move on next week and follow this new formatting standard.
So we talked about.
Go ahead.
All right. So we discussed the integration of large infrastructure in cities. So basically, what we are arguing and advocating for are the redevelopment of these infrastructures to be a form of connection between the communities that were once divided. And then
Carvins, watch this, Carvins.
And so we looked at the Kennedy Rose Park Greenway for one of our examples, and looked at how it was originally sort of this large central highway that divided the communities within the city. But by placing the highway underground, it allowed a lot of spaces on the upper level to sort of become these open public spaces that allowed for a lot of interaction with the people of the city. And this greatly increased sort of the walkability of the site, and that promoted a lot of interaction within people. And this all helped to reduce the congestion of automobiles on the streets of the city.
Wait, he's cheating. He's zooming in. That is so effective. If I knew I could do that, I would have done it, right? Can you zoom in? Is that allowed?
yes.
Yes.
So.
One of the reasons we like high resolution images. Well done, Brandon.
Josh.
And for my video, I kind of like looked at the Highland Park in New York and how its revitalization kind of like, you know, brought in new growth to the city in this particular area. It's moving so slow. Can you move it to like the yeah, right there. So I kind of highlighted the Highland Park to kind of like show how its revitalization into an urban public park kind of like brought in an influx of new people and new growth into the city, as kind of like abandoned infrastructure of the buildings kind of like was now redeveloped due to its proximity to the park, redeveloped into housing that people could go into, as well as new businesses into the area.
Do we get extra points for making 2-minute videos? Do we get double points for 2 minutes?
I don't know. No.
We actually lose points. It's harder to get it all in 1 minute. Okay.
So to basically sum up, we kind of asked the question that like, can these redevelopment of these infrastructure projects and just new mega infrastructure projects in cities kind of like mediate the America's dependency on the automobile and be like serve the community and its environment.
Excellent. Next group.
I believe that's us. I'm sure. Colin, you want to start?
Yes, we were talking about how Priscilla and I both have classes. Hers is in Dominican Republic and mine is in Caracas, and how these open spaces are surrounded by very important highways and government buildings, residential buildings, hotels, and how in the other hand, Hong Kong has a very high population density, but has little green and open spaces. So we were discussing and how can we optimize these open spaces in cities to complement the surroundings better and bring the community together. Priscilla, do you want to explain your video?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. So basically, this is La Plaza de la Bandera in Santo Domingo. It's like a patriotic monument. And basically I spoke about how how people walk into, like however you drive, you have to actually see the monument, and how the open spaces relate to the monument as well as the government buildings surrounding it. doing that. You want to talk about this?
Yes. So in my video, I talk about how these long streets and highways connect to very important roads and bring pedestrian and vehicular traffic to the plaza. In the center, we got the obelisco, which is like a very attractive um, thing in the plaza that brings people together. But the question I asked is, how can the surroundings complement better the connection between the cities and the community? Kind of like thinking if it's missing a factor, or it's the plaza too big that people need something else to feel attracted to go to that place.
I don't know why it's doing this. And lastly, Sharon.
Like my video talks about the Hong Kong's public green spaces, and you can see I take the red is provided for the public, and the other purple are just belonging to personal. But although like you add red and purple, they're just very few green spaces. So I wanna my question is that when we design when we at the beginning of the design, so how we consider the land for public using but not affect the future development.
Okay. And any key question that you three are looking at moving forward to acknowledge the difficulty of this task?
Yeah, like how to consider the use of like public and open spaces at the beginning of the design, so that it does not affect the city future development.
Okay. All right, next group.
All right. Can you guys see my screen? So our action statement was to redevelop existing automobile centers, centered infrastructure with the purpose of creating pedestrian-friendly boulevards. So
this is the city of Madrid, Spain, and what's seen here is that there's both a disconnection between both pedestrian and the vehicular traffic. And so the alternative is to sort of reestablish these areas by converting these highways underground and sort of conserving them to repurpose these areas into public walkways.
Yeah, and so this is Fowler Square in New York City. So this used to be like a really busy intersection and what used to be just a small green space. But then they took out part of the road towards the right and gave that to that green space and then turned it into a large plaza. And then today that plaza is used as outdoor seating for the surrounding businesses and restaurants, as well as a gathering space for the pedestrians.
Okay.
And so for the city of San Francisco, in this region, there used to be this existing highway infrastructure that used to dominate the land and take up a major portion of the city to accommodate space for like car-centered automobile parking and infrastructure. But then as soon as they demolished that and incorporated other modes of transit, such as sidewalks for walkability, bike paths, tram tracks, this place sort of became revitalized and that it became a point of destination rather than just a means of passing through. And so it just spurred the community in that more housing was developed, and creating different modes of public transit actually increases the demand to live in these areas, which also boosts the economic growth of this region.
Okay. So we're trying to limit it to 2 bits of evidence.
Okay.
I apologize. So maybe we move, in the interest of time, we move directly to the next group. Thank you.
Okay, so our statement was funding public transportation to make it the most efficient and convenient option can reduce private transportation and unite communities. So kind of looking at Helsinki, I was looking at their intense tram system and how they really make it an efficient option for everybody. And they use that to eliminate the use of private cars. And they have implemented these systems to make the trams really accurate so that they're a more efficient option and quicker option than using private cars.
So here we have the Mall of America Transit Station in Minnesota, and what's kind of iconic about this structure is that it really highlights the surrounding outlets, so obviously the mall itself, and becomes like its own kind of beacon of like community, and it has this really interesting glazing opportunity on either side of this walkway where it kind of gives you the availability to look down into like these highway and like traffic lanes, and it kind of almost begins to reference like the inadequacies that private transportation can have, and it almost is like incentivizing like the usage of like more public means of transportation. And this would kind of like tie back into our main objective of talking about how architecture can begin to like create more moments that incentivize like public transportation and can almost create like this dialogue as to give better options than private transportation.
Okay. Next.
Sorry, I'm recording. Okay. So our statement is identifying the road users and supporting their different needs will help reduce congestion, pollution, and increase safety. Alex, do you want to talk about this, please?
This is a highway in New Orleans that built without the permission of the local neighborhood, and it ended up causing damage to the entire site. So it cuts a scar through the site, which creates the segregation, and the highway replaces the public green space and increase the density of traffic, which also cause more air pollution. So the urban site appears like to be unhealthy and disconnected due to the installation of the highway.
Okay.
I might talk about population and how as population increases, traffic and pollution increase, but so does profit, because as population increases, the more people purchasing personal vehicles increases, putting more cars on the road, and this causes an increase in pollution and congestion on the highways and how there's no more space for parking. And I talk about how we should go towards public transportation and how it would decrease the use of personal vehicles and take traffic off the road. And if there was a way to increase the eco-friendliness of public transportation, it would be better, as it would increase the people walking.
Okay.
That's it.
So 2 bits of evidence and then the summary slide?
Oh, you want the summary slide? Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a new system. We're just working through the kinks.
Okay, this is the summary slide. We just pretty much summed up like what we said in the beginning about how pollution kind of causes traffic and stuff like that. How traffic causes pollution, sorry.
And it'd be great if you can update this final slide so it includes your improved version of your action statement.
Okay, yeah.
All right, thank you. Next group, Tony, Carlos, Sophia.
You see my screen?
Yes.
So what we have an action plan is we develop an alternative of freeways to incorporate a new form of transportation within cities, because all of us focus on the different forms of the freeways and highways that are created within our city and how some of its form kind of negatively impacted a city. So for mine was on the central artery of Boston, Massachusetts. And the highway that's going to be shown here was negatively like the worst highway in Boston because of how much cost and money was made into the highway. It even though it's like spread throughout the whole region of like the city of Boston, it's still create like a bad impact around it, and like it just negatively impacted. And also with the buildings that are surrounding around it, because more buildings were around it, but it got demolished due to the construction of the highway. So it was like bad and just like it negatively impacted. So it was identified as a worse highway. And Rex will talk about the positivity of how it was changed. Rex, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep. So like for my part, like I chose like the Boston as example. So my highways is all connected with like a different functional area in Boston, and also connected like the south of the Quincy residential area. But there still have some issue because of like when the time is changing and the local population will grow bigger than before. So that's why that's bring a lot of like traffic for these highways during the most busiest time for every day. And also there will also bring some like a negative influence for like a surrounding residential, like that will be give the like more cost for them to build like the to protect themselves away from noise, and also like make a lot of noise for the surrounding residentials. And the central part will be like the south station, and will be connected with like the railway system and also with the highway system. Probably that's it.
This is where all our ideas come together.
And are there any questions that you can hit us with that gets at the complexity of trying to achieve this?
Yeah, there is some questions that we still think about, like how the freeways and highways are still being formed within the city.
And also we're thinking about like how to like move the pressure from the different area, like it separates the pressure from the residential area to another like new areas, like and set the commercial, like set the political center away from the Boston center and to another place.
Okay.
And without like damaging the old situations and old systems.
All right. Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. So my image was trying to say how to try to fix the separation between the communities by creating community spaces either underneath or somehow intertwining or weaving the freeway with these community spaces to make it seem less separated. gosh, 639. So it talks about the highway I-93 going into Boston and how it loops around itself to try to keep up with the traffic along with the automobile increase that has been happening. But it also has the defect of actually separating these three different areas. It separates Bunker Hill, East Cambridge, and West End of Boston. And it tries to talk about how possibly we could create different community spaces underneath the bridge or that intertwines with the bridge. So then the community spaces are less separated.
Okay. And then what are the key questions that would create complications?
Some key questions could be how can the highway be redesigned without actually demolishing the entire thing, because it's made of a lot of concrete and stuff like that. So it would be an expensive fix to have to do.
Okay. Good job, despite the fact that you found yourself alone.
Thanks.
Well done. Okay. Extra points for degree of difficulty. Okay. Kiara and group.
So our statements are to integrate infrastructure for automobiles with spaces for pedestrian and public transit system.
The idea of public mobility is lost.
Oh, can you mute?
Sorry,
Specifically the
that
automobile.
was.
The idea of public mobility is lost.
Sorry.
It's okay. Basically, sorry. So basically I was showing how the highways I-10 and 10, where they intersect, takes up a huge amount of space, almost as big as the convention center to the north, and how it kind of creates a separation between the neighborhoods surrounding, and has no connection for the pedestrians to get to downtown, but rather kind of separates them. And yeah.
So this is the city of Atlanta, Georgia, and I was highlighting the interstate that separates the city as a whole, and as well as the secondary roads that also create a graded type of structure within the city. And all of the traffic needs parking lots, so there are abundant, as well as having the high rises tucked between the parking lots and roads.
Right, and so some of the questions that we have, and to summarize everything, wanted to incorporate more pedestrian transit, maybe cutting through the highways or under the highways, and that reduces also the carbon emission on the to the environment, and also increase livelihood of the city.
Excellent, thank you. I apologize to those of you who did not get a chance to present, Zahra, etc., all of you. We're going to spend less time next Wednesday on development of the slides because we're getting so good at it, and more time presenting, with the idea that soon we will be able to have more of a give and take discussion about perhaps even prioritizing which of these action steps belong at the very top of the list, or is there a logical sequence of first do this, second do this. So that's where this is heading. Thank you all very much. We're out of time. We'll see you Friday. If you have any questions, hang back. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.